Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Raymond Guzman, and on today's video I wanted to discuss skinwalkers. Now this has been a topic basically in folklore. There's a lot of skepticism and a lot of, different stories that have been passed down different generations of people who, lived in certain areas where Native Americans used to reside. Now, a skinwalker in Native American basically believed that it was a person, either a shaman or a witch who was human and was sort of evil. They could transform into the form of a dog, a coyote, a wolf, simply by being naked and wearing the clothing of animals, the skin of animals on themselves, and they had these magical abilities to transfer into a skinwalker. And in the Norse religion, I believe, or the Norse culture, they also had some beliefs on what a skinwalker would be. Now, when I watched one of the shows on TV, I can't remember what it was about, but they spoke about skinwalkers, and it was like a group of 3 ladies in the desert, and basically they had like the headpieces of animals, and animal boots, like the fur, the skin of the animal on them, and basically they would just transform into a mist. But I did want to go ahead and share my personal experiences. Now, like I said, I've had tons of paranormal experiences, some that may sound a little far-fetched or like way out there, and I'm just sharing what I've gone through. Genuinely, you can either accept it, or you can, just kind of like have an open mind with what I'm about to say. And like I said, I know that if I was listening to someone talking about seeing a skinwalker, basically I would have my doubts too. Is it real? In my opinion, it is real, and I'll tell you why. I had an experience. This was about 2001, 2002. I love sharing these kind of stories with y'all, because they're actually based on real stories, things that happened to me. Okay, so the property that I live in now, basically I used to work at a job in a call center, and I had to work the early shift, which was like from 6 o'clock in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. So I was like the first shift of the day. Well, I had to leave the house kind of like at 5:30. Sometimes I would make a stop at McDonald's to go and get a cup of coffee and a biscuit, and then, head my way on to work. Well, this particular morning, it was around, I want to say it was like October. It was the month of October, and it was already fall. And I was leaving early in the morning in the car, and I went to go and check our mailbox, which is a community box in the neighborhood that I live in. We don't have our own mail box, at our house. So as I was approaching, and leaving, I had already checked the mailbox, and I was leaving in the vehicle, heading, towards my house, and then out through the street to the main road. I saw what appeared to be like a human. It was all black, and it looked like it had its back facing towards me, but almost like at an angle. And I remember seeing the back of it, and it looked like it was a human, in a fetal position, but kind of like sitting up, kind of like with the knees tucked under the chin, and kind of like holding themselves. And I remember I kept looking, and I was like, no, that's not possible. And then as I was approaching closer, I remember seeing that turn into an actual dog. It was a black dog. It was a neighborhood dog that we had in the neighborhood. It belonged to one of the neighbors, and we had always seen this dog. They didn't have him in a leash. He would run sometimes, loose or get loose himself. And I remember seeing that completely, and it really was like frightening, because I was like, even though nothing really shocks me anymore due to all the experiences that I've had, but this really, like, at the time, it really shook me up. I was like around, I want to say it was 19 or 20 when this happened, and I'll never forget it, and then I never knew what you would call these things, people that I guess humans that can transform into an animal, or vice versa. I don't know I didn't know at the time what you would call them. So I recently bought a book of mythical creatures. Let me show it to you. And this is not sponsoring the book, but if you do have a chance to pick it up, I really would recommend it. It's the Mythical Creatures Bible by Brenda Rosen. And this is what the book looks like, and I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see it. Can you see that? Basically, it has everything that you need to know about all types of creatures, you know, in there. And they had a section of the Wendigo, and it's, you know, I'm finding this very interesting because a lot of my experiences that I couldn't put a name towards what I had seen, you know, it's in there, believe it or not. And, you know, a lot of people say that folklore, you know, it's just folklore, that our ancestors, you know, they created these, or the Indians, you know, they were very spiritual, they created these stories to kind of, you know, draw attention to themselves, to be passed down, you know, for fun down the generations. But, you know, you have to kind of think that, you know, they didn't have back then technology like we have today. They didn't have you know, a lot of resources like television, radio. So where did they really get all of these stories? I mean, where did they come from? There has to be some kind of fact, you know, realism to this this whole process, to these different mythical creatures that have been spotted. Because, you know, when like the skinwalkers, they've been known for like centuries. You know, people over generations have talked about them. They've come up with a lot of stories. But you know, I believe, you know, that a lot of these, like I said, we're not the only ones to just think that we are the only, you know, race or the only species here on Earth, and animals, you know, that we have identified is really ridiculous, because there's just so many different, you know, like the Galapagos, I can't say the name, island. It was like an island that scientists had done research, and they found different type of species of animals, not animals, but fish, and like aquatic life. Basically, they found a lot of different species that we hadn't, you know, even known, you know, humankind hadn't even realized. So I believe, like, out there, you know, there is all these things that are documented. There had to have been some kind of correlation and some kind of truth behind the stories. You know, like I said, based on my experience of what I saw, I didn't know up until this day that this is what you call a skinwalker. So in my opinion, you know, they are very much real. Until you actually see it, you know, you can kind of stay on the skeptic side, and that's fine. You know, not everybody's going to believe this. It's a good story to some people, but it really did happen to me, and it really shook me up when I was, you know, that young age. I'm still young, but you know, just having that experience at 19, 20 years old, and not knowing what you would call it. So I'm glad, you know, now we live in a modern generation where more tools like YouTube is so fantastic that we have it at our fingertips. We can look up things, we can find videos, and there's people out here that have had their experiences, that are sharing their experiences daily with everyone, you know, out on the YouTube community. And I just think that this is a great platform and forum, you know, for people to really, you know, take some time and listen, you know, a lot, you know, listen to your grandparents or your great-grandparents if they're still alive, and they're sharing these stories about these creatures, because there's so many, there's so much truth behind a lot of them. And in another video, I want to talk about Mexican or Hispanic or Latino folklore, and it's called La Llorona. And basically this is a being that is a witch that can transform into an owl, and like a bird, and they have big eyes, usually, you know, to see and whatnot. But I'll go into detail about that in different, you know, different videos, like I said, that I'm going to be doing. But very interesting. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't, you know, I do have a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to certain things, but this is not one of them. You know, when it comes to like a lot of the folklores, I do believe that there's a lot of realism and behind the stories and whatnot. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you did like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and those links will be listed in the description box below. If you'd like to set up a private reading with me, you can visit my website. It's www.raymondguzman.net/shop, and while you're there, go ahead and hit over to the testimonials tab, and you can read the testimonials that I have from clients who have received a reading from me. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Blessings and love and light. Thank you.